Hi, my name is Thomas Price, and we're going to talk about hearing loss versus deaf gain. So, what is deaf gain? Deaf gain, more than anything else, is a perspective shift that many individuals since birth have had. It states that they don't have hearing loss, but rather have gained their deafness, and with it, an improved visual orientation on the world. This difference originally stems from the concept of normalcy, founded in the early 19th century. Since deafness isn't necessarily the norm, it implies inherently that something is missing, which isn't the case. But by challenging this current perspective that many people have, many hearing people, deaf gain can become the norm that it should be. Aaron Williamson is an actor in the UK who started becoming deaf around age 7 and questioned why all the doctors told him that he was losing his hearing rather than gaining his deafness. This is the kind of perspective shift that society needs to become more welcoming of and accepting for the deaf community to thrive. This step also is necessary to begin reaping the benefits of deaf people in society. So let's talk about the concept of normalcy, because that really defines what this hearing loss versus deaf gain argument is all about. Normalcy, the first known usage, was in the early 19th century, mostly in a mathematical sense. However, it only came into the common vernacular in the mid to late 19th century. The term was popularized by former President Warren G. Harding in 1920 after World War II, referencing a speech he gave about returning to normalcy rather than revolution. The normalcy theory states that there is an established set of metaphysical values, physical characteristics, and ideals that one should strive to exist within. Now, this realistically is a negative mindset since it discourages individuality in general, and it makes those who don't fit in within these boundaries feel less than. Normalcy extends its influence into the world of deaf culture as well. The perception of deafness and how one views it in the context of deaf gain rather than hearing loss always comes back to this normalcy. Since most of the population is hearing, the norm has been implicitly established as such. This frames that anyone who cannot hear as less than norm. This school of thought was accepted and embraced up until recently. Pictured on the right there is the front page of a pamphlet from 1891, shortly after the conceptualization of normalcy, but long before the deaf gain movement. And it portrays deafness as a disease that needs curing rather than another way to perceive the world. This is extremely negative for some obvious reasons. But by consciously rejecting normalcy and accepting deaf gain, we create a more inclusive and positive atmosphere for these deaf people. Now, there's a lot of benefits to deaf gain, and it's a lot more than just, you know, it has very wide-stretching societal impacts. Sign language is a key aspect of the deaf community, but its usage has done more than just enhance and invigorate deaf culture. Using sign language has led to new understandings of the human brain and language comprehension. This is because when deaf people communicate, their occipital lobes are more present in what are more active in what's going on rather than hearing languages in which it is temporal. Yet language comprehension maintains the same. Diversity among the world, both biologically and culturally, is also enhanced when deaf gain is accepted. Without any diversity, if the entire human population was just cookie cutter, identical copies of one another, it would fall apart both biologically and culturally. But I mean, clearly, deafness is not a disadvantage or even a disease since it has maintained itself. It has existed for thousands of years. Therefore, it's just something that adds to our level of diversity. Sensory gains are also present and pretty significant, meaning that in deaf individuals, there is a greater emphasis placed on visual stimulus, allowing for diversity creatively as well as culturally. culturally. But possibly the largest portion of deaf gain is its acceptance into a new culture. Deaf culture is vibrant and diverse, and being a part of it has been proven to decrease language deprivation and increase grades, and later in life, increase happiness. This was discussed a lot in the Language Deprivation and Deaf Mental Health book by Glickman and Hall. Now, there is one snag when it comes to deaf gain versus hearing loss, and that's when it comes to late stage deafness and deaf gain. Oftentimes, due to having a specific perception of normalcy their whole lives, people who become deaf as they age are less likely to adapt to the way of thinking that a born deaf individual very easily adapts to. They pursue treatments to cure their newfound disability rather than embrace what deafness provides. On the other hand, on the right is a graph displaying a hearing loss, or rather deaf gain, of males and females worldwide. Many of these individuals likely would report comfortability or uncomfortability with gaining deafness, as it's just something they're not used to. But this can be alleviated by eradicating this idea of normalcy in the first place. However, another issue arises with sign language. Learning sign language, or really any language, is difficult, especially later in life. This brings up another topic, the fixation of English superiority in the United States. The lack of non English languages taught, unlike many other countries that have students learning several languages from a young age. But that's not the point. The point is that if we change the perception of normalcy, being open to a new culture is something that I think many people would be a lot more responsive to, which can only be beneficial. The acceptance of deaf gain is complicated. Realistically, it's, at least for me, it's difficult to really outgrow this mindset that I was raised in, which is that hearing is the norm and deafness is a medical issue. This is due to the mainstream upbringings that many of us had, ignoring what makes deafness unique and irreplaceable, rather than what makes it less than. But in the end, near total acceptance of deaf gain should be the goal, as it provides a healthier and happier environment, not just for deaf people, but for everyone.